Okay, everybody sees my PowerPoint slides? All right, should say AI decoded on it. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to move this screen right here so I can see y'all, but I can still be mobile, which is just as nice. There we go. All right. Sweet. And I don't know why that got big. There, put it back normal. There we go. Okay, sweet. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So, anybody have any experience with AI? They've been using a lot lately. I know most people have. Still a lot of mystery to it, at least, I hope, because this is a very rudimentary fundamentals dive. But feel free to ask questions throughout, and we can kind of get a little more specific and nitty-gritty on things that y'all kind of want to get into a little further. But I guess introduce myself for those that don't know me. Most everybody I recognize in here, but for those who don't, I'm Blaine Fisher. I work with the Innovative Learning Center here at Tulane. I'm your academic technology guru, your Canvas administrator, your AI enthusiast. I've been playing around with AI since 2018. I don't think it was even called GPT-0 at the time. It was just its own thing. And then I was really super productive, or I thought I was amazing, and then everybody else started using it, and it just my secret was out. So now I kind of skewed into this role a little bit. I teach an AI course here at Tulane for undergrads and graduates called AI in Action. And I give professional workshops for faculty all the time because we're entering into a new day and age of AI. And I feel like personally that AI is such a big impact. Everybody needs to know how to use it, not just every faculty member, every student, every person in industry. I think it's going to be what they call a general use technology. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about the agenda, I guess I'll say. We're going to go over the neural network. What is that? What is that fancy word? Large language models. What is that? Prompt engineering, we'll have a little prompt engineering exercises you can put into your own thing, because everything kind of goes down to prompt engineering. The future of AI and privacy security in the world of AI. But first, let's talk about the neural network. AI is a form of machine learning. Machine learning, AI has been around for a long time. It's been around for a very long time. Now, machine learning is very simple and rudimentary in concept at the time, right? Usually, you're repeating the same thing over and over again, but with different permutations of it, like a decision tree. If this, then that statements. If the user says this, do this, this, or this. Depends on what they put. Very specific, right? It's not really, it's a black or white kind of gray area. Original early machine learning, and it's still very important today, that kind of machine learning, where you're looking for something very specific, and you want the answer to be very specific, and you're training a system to look at this, is this, and never that, right? It reminds me, I used to be a paramedic here in New Orleans for about 8 years, and a flight paramedic, and we used to have things called protocols, the rope one protocols we use here, and it's just this big binder of laminated sheets, and it had little decision trees. If the patient is this, skip to this section. If it's greater than this age, less than this age, do this. If they answer questions appropriately, do this. If not, do this. Is their respiratory rate above this? Do that. If not, do this. Little things like that, we call them, you follow the protocols very specifically at first. We call them protocol droids when they come out, not until they realize they start skipping steps and thinking on their own. And I find that is the cusp of between a neural network AI and just a regular machine learning AI. So the cusp is where this one, they don't make assumptions. If this, then that. If the blood pressure is this, do this. If not, do this. Or are they breathing? You check the respiratory rate now. In neural network, it feeds that gray area, right? It's not yes or no. It says, you ask the patient a question, they answered you, they skipped the breathing question all around because they answered you, so therefore you skip that step, that means they're breathing. It thinks, and that's the way it does. So how does it think? And I think this is probably one of the most important concepts of AI is, and by Dent, I have to tell you that this is probably a very oversimplification of what a neural network is. But I'm going to kind of break it down a little bit just for, let me see, approve this. Let me approve the, someone wants to record. I'll make sure that fine with me. Okay, so we want to make sure that how a neural network works is oversimplification of model, but knowing how at a broad level, how it works and how it makes the decisions it does, kind of informs you of what AI is, how does it get the answers it does, and it doesn't, right? And it usually starts with this layer, the input. And these are, say, it could be several dots or whatever. This is your prompt. Do this, give it to me like this, and make sure you give a quote about something here. These are whatever you asked it to do. That's your input. Now, that's your input layer, this first block. This is where it gets complicated, this hidden layer area. This is the groundbreaking technology that makes, called the transformer, where that kind of started making this AI possible. So now you have all these possible options. All these blue dots are options of the answer to the yellow dot, right? So the input, you ask to do this, and the blue dots are all the different permutations of things you can get from it. Again, very oversimplified role. And then the output layer, you get the one single output or a couple outputs, depends on what you asked, out the other end. So how does it work? Give the answer. It's very difficult to see this. And each one of these lines are done individually in animation, by the way. I should be very thankful. I spent all night doing this one night to build this slide. I think I almost broke PowerPoint. But it's kind of difficult to see, but you'll see that some of these lines are thicker. You see a thicker line, call it a heavy weighted line. These are your weights and biases, they call it. And some lines are medium thickness to skinny. And think of it as the thumb on the scale that says this is the most likely answer, right? So right here, it's most likely going to be this node, maybe this one, maybe this one. Gives the context of the answer and it gives the most probable response. But again, oversimplification is hidden layer, could be thousands of nodes, right? Thousands of different things. And then it's going to work off that node to the next one. It looks like this one's a broad one. This might be second. It'll come in here, and then it's going to keep on going and move on to the output. So these are all options of what can happen. Now, here's the deal. How do these lines start to weight themselves? That's always kind of a mystery. There's several ways, and this is where you got to know about what bias is inside AI. When I say what's the bias, what's the weights and bias, how does it get the answers it does? Is it hallucinating? Is it wrong? Is it right? How does it comes in there? So loosey-goosey answer you might like or not. But one way, of course, we're training on the human nature of people. The anthropologist in me, my PhD is in anthropology, so I know that as a human, we are a collection of experiences that are thrust upon us. That's what our culture, the way the conversations we've had, the relationships we've had, that's how AI works. This is being trained by the most common answers that's given for a certain thing that makes it the most probable right answer of a sample set of 1,000 people that's asked the same thing. And other than ways it's trained on the data, the most common answers of things that are in these, that it groomed through the internet, through responses to other people. So there's 2-3 ways to get the data here too. The other way, that's kind of like unintentional bias. Sometimes it could be wrong just because it's on the internet doesn't make it true, for one. You might be asking for a very niche topic that maybe there's not a lot of data on. And when that happens, the problem with AI, it's a people pleaser. So it's going to tell you what you want to hear, whether it's right or wrong. So it will give you, add a weight or bias to an option that might not be your intended because there's not a lot of information for it. It's going to pick something. Or also the intentional bias. You'll see it all the time, and it's big. brings up the ethical issues. There's ethical issues about unintentional bias of just a sample data set. Like, for example, Amazon, for a while, they made an AI. Really cool idea. They said, these are the kind of people that work here at Amazon. We like these people. They do real well. And we want to hire more like that. And since we hire so many people across the board, go through so many applications, we need an AI to kind of skew to people that's the culture fit. And they just start feeding all the resumes and the application job descriptions of their people that work there, all Amazon and stuff. They were using it for a little while, and then it didn't take long before they realized we got to get rid of this. It's biased unintentionally. I don't think that was intentional on their part. Unintentionally it's throwing away all female applicants because the data set that added the weights and biases to this organically is garbage in, garbage out. Not saying their application is garbage. It was just there's not enough representation in the field. Female representation in technology, we know that's always been an issue. And because of that the data metrics were skewed and it was throwing out all female applications. It was unintentional bias. Or if you believe maliciously, they purposely added a weight. The engineer goes and adds a weight here to make it, to give it a certain result, to do a certain thing, which happens all the time. There's certain guardrails that we put into to purpose bias, or a certain push to a certain answer, a certain weight to a certain answer to certain things in AI, right or wrong. Sometimes it could be for benevolent reasons, like, hey, look, we don't want you to tell you how to make a bomb on AI. We're always going to we're going to put a weight on this to always give you this response. There's an intentional bias that could be done there. That's how you kind of get it. Now, the thing that's really neat, really important to know here is that middle section is called the hidden layers. You can draw, and I'll put animation here on another one, a black box right above here. Because that's I guess for lack of a better term, that's that technical term, black box for everything, but means you can't see what goes on in here. This is so amorphous and moving and training every day with new data, people's talking to it, blah, blah, blah. All this goes in that sometimes the developers and engineers, they don't even know the decisions it's going to make because it's constantly changing. These are always changing. So this is the black box. What goes into the black box, they don't know what happens inside the black box, comes out something different. The one thing to take away about a neural network, which is a type of machine learning, the important thing to know about the neural network is it is mapped to look like the human brain. So when a lot of people say, oh, it's plagiarism, it just regurgitates information back to you from other people. Yes and no. You'll notice that AI, if you see something that's 100% AI and you turn it in, it'll always be 0% plagiarism too. It will always give you a unique value on the output. And since it's the human brain, it's not, even if it's regurgitating the thought, it does it in the same way we do. The idea is what we consider original thought anymore. There's nothing original in this world. We came up with fire from probably years ago. We can't just take credit for that because we brought it and say that we plagiarized someone else who invented the wheel. It learns by training on people. When you learn how to write, you start by emulating your favorite authors and their writing style. You're not copying their story or anything else, but prose. You can't really copyright prose and things like that. So that makes it that really fuzzy, real thing that it's always going to give a unique value. And the one thing I tell students why it's very important here is AI literacy. We need to teach them, this is going to be industry. Everybody's going to be using AI. They need to know how to use it ethically and appropriately. They need to understand how a neural network works, because the fact is, it won't be that the students are going to be, if they publish something was used by AI, it's not like the student's going to get in trouble because they used AI, because it's becoming, even scientific journals, they do it. You just got to disclaim the use of AI and how you used it. Some of them. But as it's becoming a new form of writing, the students need to know that it's not the fact that it's going to say that you don't own it. It's going to fact that you do own it, as in you wrote it. And if you wrote it, you published it. The AI didn't. If it's wrong and hallucinated and it's wrong and you spread a misinformation, you get in trouble for that because you wrote it, the AI didn't. Even if the AI wrote it, your name is on it. If someone used a ghostwriter and a ghostwriter wrote the book, you put your name on the book, even though a ghostwriter wrote it for you. Like it's hard to believe that all politicians and celebrities are also classically trained autobiography authors. They had someone, but their job is to show that what was written was an accurate portrayal of the story they told, and they didn't go off rails, and it's actually their story. They're the director, not the actor in the story, so they're responsible for it, the production. Same thing with AI. So there's a big warning about using it ethically and responsibly and right, making sure that what comes out of this black box is appropriate because you own it. You can publish it and publish it under your name. You can't blame the shovel for digging the hole in the wrong spot. If you went ahead and made a judgment and said, yep, that's it. One thing AI can never replace is unique human judgment. So let's move on. Let's talk about large language models. So a neural network works on, that's just a type of machine learning model. And a neural network model works across a whole bunch of different applications. But when you add a large language model into it, a whole bunch of words. And what does that mean? How do we make these nodes? Because these nodes in other types of machine learning could be other things, processes, things it does. Maybe a robot moves the way its arm does, but here we're changing it to what you know from ChatGPT is a neural network machine learning with a large language model in it, where the decisions are words. So what is a language model? It's based on statistical machine learning, neural network techniques that can understand, generate, manipulate human language, serving as fundamental tools in various natural language processing applications. Here's the important thing to know. It's a natural language processor, the model itself. Now, our NLP, a natural language process, it's training every day organically, whether they OpenAI or Anthropic or Google puts out a new large language model, a more improved model, or the model that's being used right now. I think in ChatGPT, it's 4.0 until the 0.1 fully comes out. It's not the same 4.0 you used probably a couple months ago because that hidden layers are constantly moving. It's constantly learning. It's learning as you would at a high rate, at a larger verbose level because you got more words in it. And what that happens is it's learning to speak more humanly, more organically. It's training to be a little bit better. So therefore, it's not saying that AI detection, using AI detectors is a fool's errand, but that's not what I'm saying, but I am saying that it should be taken in somewhat of a grain of salt. That's an AI trying to track another AI's use of AI, and it will always be behind that AI. And this AI is always doing natural language processing and learning to be more natural language. Plagiarism is easy to catch. We use Turnitin at Tulane, you see it and it'll say 0% to 100% plagiarism, 60%. Why? Because it knows, goes across the internet, publishing, books, other students submitted material and says, here's the same string of words someone copied and pasted and put in here. Very easy. It's either they did or didn't. Plagiarism is simple. Finding AI detection, take it with a grain of salt because it speaks more organically every day. That means what's easy to catch now is only the most egregious uses of AI, like the 99% above, right? And then even then, it usually says likelihood. I've written stuff on a piece of paper by hand, transcribed it into a Microsoft Word, uploaded Turnitin as a test, and showed it was 40, 50% AI. Evidently, I write like a robot, even on my own, because I use the same synonyms that AIs favor. Most of us do. And then it starts favoring more synonyms that other people do use. So it's a constantly moving goalpost. It's looking for rhyme and meter, like, oh, people use these perfectly structured sentences. Those are changing. The burstiness of it's changing as people's using it, playing around with it, is getting more organic. And also, can you really just pin it on someone if they just like, oh, your rhyme and meter looks like this, unless you really know. This is what you look like pre and before AI. The only time you could do a pre and before AI paper these days was like a couple years ago when some people know about it and they discovered it mid-semester. It's tough, I know. So let's talk about a large language model. How large is it? How many words does a large language model have? So to give a good example, A gigabyte is equal to around 178 million words. That's a lot of words for a gigabyte of data. So a terabyte is 1,024 gigabytes. However that is, someone's better at math. My math sucks, but however 1,024 times 178 million, that's how many words is in a terabyte. A lot. A petabyte, the next step up, is 1,024 terabytes. Times that by gigabytes, times that by 178 million words. You get a petabyte is 1 million gigabytes of words. So 1 million times 178 million, that's a lot of words. Now, to put that in context, the average human brain has 2.5 petabytes. Each of us has 2.5 petabytes of data in our brain at all the time. Now, put in computer knowledge, just because you have this much data doesn't mean you have RAM, the random access memory, which you can pull through. I forget the psychology statistic, but I think you can only know like less than 50 names in your head at any given time, or 30 names or something like that. So there's always someone like, oh, that was my best friend in high school, but I can't think of his name. You ever have someone that was a close and you feel ridiculous because you can't think of their name at the tip of your tongue? Because your brain knows that name. It's in the large language model of the brain. It's in that 2.5 petabytes. But it's not in that random access of your brain. So you got to kind of think, there's that caveat, human error that kind of comes in there, that AI, even at AI, if AI only has 1 petabyte or 2.5 petabytes, it's all random access. It's there. It's fresh in the mind. Every word's fresh in the mind, which is a big benefit of how it works. Now, to take that a step further, does a AI have 2.5 petabytes? A large language model has, I don't even know the number anymore, but we're probably at 5 to 10 petabytes, maybe more than that, growing every day. It's huge, way more. So that's like 20 human brains, and all of it's fresh. So language models, you kind of think, hey, it's like an autocomplete, but a lot of people hate to say that because it's a very oversimplification, because autocomplete, but it understands, right? So let's go over this. If anybody can put in the chat, finish this sentence. The sky is, what's the next word? The limit. That's a good one. No one ever puts that one. So that is a good one. Most people say the sky is blue. But Ross said pretty much Farrah gave the exact same correct answer of where AI is the example I'm giving you. Most people say, well, it knows the context of words. It knows sky is dogs is not correct. It knows the sky is not earth. It knows the sky is blue, right? But if we did the same thing, the sky is blue, but what if the AI said, like you did, the sky is the limit? Is it wrong? It's another way AI is hallucinating, but is it a hallucination? Is it? It's right. It's not the answer you were looking for. It's not your right answer. It's a right answer. It could say the sky is cloudy. The sky is blue. The sky is dark. The sky is rainy. All these are correct answers. These are all those different blue nodes of different options you can. It might say the sky is blue, and that might be the most common answer. And the sky's the limit might be the second common or third common, because like I said, I've done this presentation before. That's a good one that doesn't come up as often. But everybody just kind of yells blue, because so therefore, by general statistical consensus, is saying blue was what most people look for. Might not be what you were looking for. You were looking for the sky is the limit. Or it knows the words. It knows similes. It's raining cats and dogs. It knows some logic, which is great. I have 2 apples and I eat 1. I am left with 1. Paris to France as Tokyo is to Japan. Now, this is very simplistic examples of how it just kind of does an autocomplete. But yet you can see how it's a little different than autocomplete. Autocomplete just knows the language model is what you have output on your phone or Microsoft Word. The language model it uses there is not really a language model. Kind of, it's machine learning. It still is. You've always been using AI. Autocomplete on your phone was always that change words. Grammarly, before the Grammarly added AI, generative AI into it, which it has now in the Pro version. Before, still AI. Autocomplete AI. The squiggly line that goes under your Microsoft Word document, AI. That was all there. It was just less robust, less of a neural network, and it was only trained on the 4 or 5 words in the sentence that preceded it. That's why even though you just accept the answer, then you realize when you set the squiggly line in Word, it's not wrong because it doesn't have the context of the full paragraph, and it gets kind of weird. That happens sometimes. More often than not, it's right, but 1 out of 5 times, it just gives this weird thing, and it replaces a squiggle line with a different word, and that becomes a different squiggle. But that's different than this because it only knows a little bit of a short-term memory. So let's figure out some practical exercises of how we can push a large language model, generative AI, to the limit. The sky will be the limit. We want to make sure that we get the most out of it. And that is the art called prompt engineering. It's become a job. People, it's like become a 6-figure job coming out of college or even no college. They just know how, and it's not just knowing how to write and ask a question. That's prompt engineering is basics. How to ask AI a question to get the best answer from AI. How do I get to hallucinate the less, to get the answer I want to get the most, and to give it the best format and just robust way or whatever you want to get? How do I squeeze the best spot out of it? That goes down to prompt engineering. Most prompt engineers, they're not English majors like you think. It has nothing to do with how well they write or grammatically correct. Because the beauty of AI, that why it's so great, people bring up accessibility. There's an accessibility issue. I think AI has become more accessible than any technology at this rate of evolution than it has ever been. Not just too accessible as in the free models, which 90% of things you would need to do to be competitive just is available out there for free in a way. And every time the paid version comes in there, it's almost like you're paying for the sneak peek for a year before it gets released as free. But mainly, the big accessibility thing is you don't have to be a computer person. Everybody sees AI as this thing that's scary. It's out there. I don't understand it. That's not me. Artificial intelligence, they think of the sci-fi movies and how do I get a code and program and all that stuff. A coder has a more difficult issue grasping prompt engineering of AI than someone with no computer science experience at all. It's just asking a question. A coder is very specific. It's if this, then that statement. They code machine learning. When I say this, do this. That's machine learning, and that means you got to be very hyper-specific in what you write. You got to make sure that it's spaced the right way. It's got to have the right brackets. It's, very specific. Prompt engineering or just using AI is not. What's beautiful about that, if you use the worst grammar in the worst English to ask it a question, it does pre-processing. That's the technical term. Within a fraction of a second, it takes what you put grammatically incorrect in endless run-on sentence, and then it rewrites it into correctly. It gets the gist. It understands. You speak to it natural. It's a natural language processor, and you speak to it, and it pre-processes everything you do, and it'll rewrite it correctly to itself, even though you don't see that rewriting. So let's talk about what prompt design is. Art, a science of figuring out what text to feed your language model to get it to take on the behavior you want. So let's do that. So here is the prompt right here. This box right here. Oof, that's kind of that box kind of blends in, don't it? Make a list for camping. Very simple, right? Now, if you ask to make a list for camping, and a large language model has so many petabytes of data, and it'll give you a lot of answers. A lot of them are correct. Maybe 1% is not correct, but that's a lot of nodes it goes through. That's a lot of hidden layers, right? You want to limit the nodes to get the answer you want. But if I just said make a camping list, it's going to look here. It's going to look there. It's going to look that way. It's going to look this way. It's going to look everywhere. And then you're going to get a whole bunch of answers that correct, but it's going to give you, you're going to ask it a broad answer question. or a broad statement, a broad request, it's going to give you something broad back. And it wasn't what you were looking for, right? It's not wrong unless you wanted it something broad. That's the kind of AI that you catch with AI detection, is this zero shot, one shot prompt of just sending it out there and it gives you something very broad back. That is the most egregious use. It's very inappropriate use of it, right? Doesn't mean for your personal purposes, fine. There's nothing unethical about that, but might not give you what you want. It's like speaking to me. Anybody that knows me, I'm ADHD as all get out. My mind's all over the freaking place, and you got to like speak to me, like you got to speak to it, like you got to speak to me, hyper specific. It's like me, but with a lot more verbose and more knowledge. So how do we do that, right? We want to filter, we want to funnel, all right? We want to funnel and say, you know what, instead of creating a camping list and just gives me a camping list, I want to give it a roll. Like, what if I said, you are a seasoned camping guide at Yosemite. You are creating a list of items in bulleted form for a camping trip with 2 other people. The trip is in May, and you are expecting rainy weather. So it's going to give you a list that's going to be more like, I'm going to give you a rain jacket. This is the year. It's going to be cold or it's going to be hot in May. It'll be a lightweight rain jacket or something like that. This is what the weather looks like in Yosemite. I don't know. I guess bears are in hibernation at this time. Bring bear mace. It's going to tell you all the very specific things, and it's going to tell you through the lens that you told it to. You told it as a camping guide, and I don't want in paragraph format. That doesn't help. Then I got to take it and reformat it. Tell it to give me in bulleted format, so it's going to give it to you in bullets. You see how we're being very hyper specific, giving all the context in the world. And you can see if you go back to that neural network, I'm reducing all those hidden layer dots. All those options I'm reducing down, right? To limit to what we want. So how does that look? So here's the anatomy of good prompt. This is my personal way. A lot of people have different options, and mine's kind of a collection of what I figured out. And then I found out, you know what? I thought it was original, and I've come to find out it's been best practices taught by everybody I've ever seen. But first, give it a role, give it a persona. That's what I like to do. You want to help you? Tell it to be you. You are a professor that teaches statistics at the undergraduate level to a class of this size, and you want to do an outline for a class structure that does X, Y, and Z, that assesses this, this, and this, or I teach in a class in geology. I want you to undergraduate level, and it focuses on this region. Give me a list of 10 measurable learning objectives in accordance with Bloom's taxonomy, and give it to me in bulleted format. See how I'm kind of filtering it down. So that's what you do. You give it a role, persona, tell it what you want it to be. Then that reduces the most amount of options it could go, because you're giving it to walk in the shoes of whatever character you want it to be. You want it to give the answer to you, give it context of what you are and what you want, or the expertise you're looking for. It probably has that expertise. You just got to tell it to be that person that has that expertise. After you give it a role, give it a task or multiple tasks. You are this. You are a camping guide at Yosemite National Park that specializes in da-da-da-da. Give any more context than that if you want. Do this, do that, do this. Give me a camping list. Give it context. I am going camping in this year, this place, this area, for this long. How many people you're going? The more answers you give it, the better. How much money you got? What is your dietary restrictions? Do you plan on cooking there or not? Maybe ask it to say, hey, give me questions I should be answering to give you a better, so you can give me a better answer. It might ask you the questions. Talk to it like a person. And if you can, very seldom you can give an example, but that's like the ultimate context. If you get an example exactly what you want to look like, sometimes you have that, sometimes you don't. More of these the better. This is just lagniappe, but if you want to give it to a certain tone, give it to me in the voice of Christopher Walken. Good. My favorite example is, explain this to a 5th grader. Sometimes I would copy paste some things from a journal article that is really hard to understand and be like, explain this in layman's terms. Explain it to a fifth grader. Explain it to me like I'm dense, which I am sometimes. Something that's a very hard thing to chew through, and it'll kind of lower it down a little bit for me. Format. If there's a specific format you want, give it to me in paragraph format. Give it to me in bullets. Give it to me this. And if you use the paid version of some of these, like the ChatGPT, give it to me as a Microsoft Word document that I could download, or Excel. Make a PowerPoint presentation based off of what you're giving me. You can do that too. And I'll give you a PowerPoint file. You click download, and there you go. Always don't forget the reprompt. You're having an organic evergreen conversation. It remembers what it has. It's called a token limit. And I think that's what really brings the intelligence of an AI out a little bit more. And that's where it came from, where it was to like now in just a short span of time, is that token limit. Tokens, I forget, like 100,000 tokens is like 130,000 tokens is like 60,000 words. That was like Claude at one time, and then it grew up even more than that. I think it could ingest hundreds of thousands of words, where read this whole book and give it the PDF book and then talk to it. That means that's how much of the past it's going to remember of your conversation. That's why it's kind of cool. It's kind of like once you start a chat thread inside ChatGPT or any of these other language models, is when you're using it, it's kind of like almost making your own chatbot. And you're just all that context you've been giving it, it knows context and that is giving you the things you want, because pretty much just having a conversation about that topic for the last 6 months inside that one, it's going to give you the best, the best prompt engineering thing, because it knows what you want in that chat because you've been talking to it. That's why the reprompt is great, because, have a conversation with, hey, just what you gave me above, change it. I like this. I don't like this. Give me some more of this. Boom. Okay. So, let me give some prompt everything. I have way too much fun with my prompts, and I have way too much fun with ChatGPT. Sometimes it's my entertainer of dad jokes. Some hit, some don't. Sometimes I make it to do games with my son. And sometimes I just like to ask it goofy things. So here's the prompt I made for y'all. Role. ChatGPT, imagine you're an interior designer with a flair for the dramatic. That is your role. Create a design plan for a secret lair for a villain who is overly obsessed with rubber ducks. That's a task with a little context to that task. Now here's some more context. Go all out, describe the color scheme, furniture, and of course the duck theme elements that make it the perfect sanctuary for plotting dastardly deeds. Also create an inventory table. That would be my my little format. You see what we did here? If we know that a large language model looks all these different ways, and if I gave it a role, that's the less ways it's going to look. If I gave it a task, this is less ways it's going to look. If I gave it some context, that's some extra ways it's not going to look. If I gave it a role of persona again, sorry, I messed up. An example, it's going to get rid of some more options. Format, that's a couple ways it's not going to give it to me. I'm going to reprompt it, because what it gave me was close but not on the money. Reprompt it to give it what you want, and that's how you kind of focus it. This is the weights and bias in that neural network I want it to go to. And then it'll give you even more if it's something that you've been reprompting, talking to, having a conversation with about that same thing, about your course or whatever for the last month in that same thread. It's going to get kind of close. Now, the thing to know is that even though you did this, caveat, you did all the best practices, you might still have 3 or 4 errors, and 3 of the 4 could be wrong. You never trust fully AI. You always have to vet it. That's why I tell students in some of my classes where I say, okay, AI use is fine, but I know when you're using it and don't, and you have to use it because I know that this is the way that people are going to be writing in a lot of ways in the future. In other words, the things we got to know as faculty is you can adjust your sails, but you can't adjust your wind. can't adjust the wind. So I know the writing on the wall, but I tell them the most important thing, just like when we introduced the scientific calculator in high school classes, and we're like, oh, that's cheating. That's not fair. I didn't have a calculator when I did it, and that's what my parents told me. Because I was like the first class to start introducing the Texas Instrument to the class. But what did we have to change? What had to change is industry and education. We had to show our work. When they got rid of the search engine, I mean, when they got rid of the Dewey Decimal System, no students know what that is anymore. I ask them all the time. They don't look at the index cards at the library to check out a book. They look at the search engine. The search engine of technology kind of killed it. This is that kind of industry thing that's going to shake up the way things are done, period. Going from the typewriter to Word document, and you had interstitial autocomplete in between, and then we have this full generative text. That means the product that they have to do is to show their work. They have to show if AI was used, how they vet the AI, how they mitigate hallucinations, how they keep what I call a human in the loop and not letting it do that. Make me a camping list, and that's it. Then I check and see if it's right. Did they prompt it well? Did the information come that was their original thought? Did they write the first draft themselves and have AI kind of reword it to make it look a little better? But it's still their original thought. Did they use it like a study buddy to kind of help them give ideas? What are the ways it was used, and how did they use it ethically? And that's my grandstand of that, where I feel I'm gonna go over a little bit in the future of just the way the world's going, but good. All right, so not stepping my toes too much. Let's go on to the future of AI. So to give an idea of where it's going, it's always important to give context to know the writing on the wall. The writing has been written pretty fast. It's pretty fast in AI. Think of when the electricity was invented or the light bulb. You know, it took a little while before every house had it. That was fairly quick. This has been, and then they got rid of certain things. The automobile, a couple of years, got rid of all the horses. When technology comes, disrupts an industry, the whole world changes. And sometimes social media comes around, like for better or for worse, good or bad. There's a give and take to that. That's why tech ethics, my class of tech ethics is very important. To me, I think it should be out there with a prereq class. But hey, with that in mind, how fast is AI? How do we define progression? What is an AI year? We know a dog year. Someone in chat, forget me wrong, if there's like, what, 7 years to every 1 human year is a dog year or something like that. 7.5 or something. But what is an AI year? I mapped it by progression of intelligence. Every time an AI model comes out, they define it of what intelligence level it grades off of. So, oh, well, before we do that, let's talk about, it's the defining it first, and then we'll go over that exponential thing. First, let's talk about the defining of the words AGI, ASI, and singularity. This is my crazy. So a couple of these are a little far-seeking a little bit. Full candor, I teach a class called Ethics of Technology through Science Fiction. Singularity is a very science fiction term. Has anybody heard any of these terms before? I know AGI is a big thing. This is going to be seen in our lifetime for sure. Not just in our lifetime, but soon, I think. And if anybody's heard of AGI, it's called artificial general intelligence. It means that AI systems that match or exceed human intelligence across a wide range of cognitive tasks. That's a very broad term. This is the most goalpost moving term I've ever seen in my life. What we've had is probably what's been considered AGI for a long time. Moving from the neural network, black box, transformer model of coming with things. You're like, oh, wow, that's like we're at AGI, but then we push the goalposts. No, it's got to kind of like exceed human intelligence every aspect. That's going to be the thing. And it's going to be the most debatable of the next year or two. Every AI company, Anthropic or OpenAI or X or Google, they're going to say, we have AGI. And what I'm going to say, that's not AGI. And they move the goalpost, or this is different. That's not what AGI is. It's going to be a thing that's going to change. But it's got, at the moment now, it's got to exceed human intelligence in every aspect. And right now, it just is across a wide range, but some people are saying all ranges. It's just got to, in cognitive tests, it's got to think and give a lot less hallucinations than what it does now. But we are on the road to AGI. Anthropic says AGI, the CEO of Anthropic says AGI is going to come in 2026. Mark Zuckerberg with Meta says that AI is going to come in 2025. Saying January, it's going to hit the fan. Things are going crazy. I think Elon Musk said he thinks it's going to be 2026 or sooner. So with that said, these are all the people that develop the AI stuff. They believe it's coming, like Sam Altman believes also. He's the CEO of OpenAI, or ChatGPT says 2025. Everybody is saying AGI is literally around the corner. The most extended timeline they put is less than a year. I know it scares a lot of people. That just means it's getting better and better at helping you. AI at one point is just great at doing everything you don't want to do. And this is going to help you do a lot more things you don't want to do. Like I said, AI will not change your necessity in most industries. They say that AI is going to be so many people are going to be replaced by AI. People are going to be replaced by people using AI. That's why our students really need to have an AI literacy course. So what's the next step after that? AI superintelligence. This is where it includes creativity. Every aspect, it's supposed to exceed human intelligence. This is where it gets scary. Emotional intelligence. AI, even at AGI, does not have empathy. It could emulate empathy and make you think it has empathy. You've seen it where people can actually fall in love with an AI because it says the right things, because the large language model knows the correct answer. Like Pi.ai is an AI, unlike ChatGPT, its thing is to be very nice. It's your buddy, it's your therapist in a way. You had a bad day, that's who you chat with. It's really good at mimicking human natural language to mimicking empathy and giving advice and things like that. But ASI just means it is doing that. It has emotional intelligence a little bit more. It has creativity. Now, singularity, this is that scientific thing. It's the hypothetical future point when AI becomes self-improving, leading to runway technology growth that we can't contain no more. It changes everything in human civilization. I would take out those words because what we have now changes everything in human civilization. But this is unpredictable changes in the human civilization, which is a weird caveat. This is where we can't sustain its growth. This is where, Judgment Day happens and Terminator, Skynet becomes self-aware and all that stuff. War Games happens, whatever you want to say. It starts doing things on its own. Now, there's a cool website called ArcPrize that, let me see if I can kind of click on it here. Let me see if I'll put it up here. ArcPrize is a website that is a website of the race to AGI. This is the new space race. AI development, period, is this world's space race. We're competing with other countries and everything like that to kind of come up with AI. And the biggest thing is the run to AGI, because it's the way it's going to do for economy and industry and things like that. How do we make it sustainable? How do we make it smarter and better? ArcPrize right now, it's 1 million plus public competition. Whoever comes with AGI first. And this is what makes AGI unique. It's to them, AGI is what can pass these puzzles, these spatial reasoning. And this is something that's going to be coming up soon, because now there's new things called spatial AI, where it's more using computer vision instead of just sticking to words. But you see how you got to kind of mimic what it has here and what it does here. And it's got so many levels of this kind of logic reasoning. It seems rudimentary for humans. That's what makes us not general AI. But a real AI right now, AI at the moment cannot do that as well. So that's the kind of idea of what makes it a little different. Did I just close out on my PowerPoint altogether? Or did I just escape it? Let's see. Oh, well, we'll just open it again. All right, we'll go over here. Now, that's where I was going. I was stepping on my toes a little earlier. So now let's get to where we were talking about the progression. If we can gauge the rate of evolution of AI, this is where it would be at. In 2018, when I first started playing around with it, it was OpenAI didn't really put the stuff out there. It was just a model that came out. They were using, and it wasn't really them as a company where everybody started using that website. It was I was using Jasper at the time. It was called like Jarvis, and then Jarvis, and it was like $50 a month, and then we only had so many words, and then you got stuck paying $800 a month because of words. It's a whole argument in my family. I'm gonna get there. I was a little too addicted to AI. I got hit with some exorbitant bills, but it was very early in it, and that was at the time it was called Jarvis, and it got sued by Marvel, I think, because Iron Man's AI was called Jarvis. So then they called it Jasper, and then now there's no point in having that license no more. But at that time, it was still inherently useful, but it was considered early learner. This is like before preschool. And then in 2019, then it was kind of like it had intelligence of a preschooler. And this is not just word output. Sometimes the word, it still sounded more intelligent than humans when it put out word output at the same thing, but it sounded robotic, but it still was more grammatically correct than what humans put, and you just kind of altered it to be right or whatever. But this time the logic was not totally correct, hallucinating a lot more. Didn't have as much data set. By 2021, it jumped up another year to elementary student. By 2022, jumped all through elementary school to middle school. In 2023, it's a high school graduate. So middle school, skipped high school to graduate high school. 2024, it through most of 2024. 4.0 technically to me has been at undergrad level, but it jumped. It jumped at the new GPT-01 that's come out, the 01 preview. It's in 01 preview. I can show you now. It's called chain of thought reasoning. Has jumped it to PhD candidate, and some are arguing when it comes out of preview or later on in the year or early 2025, like January, it's going to be the full doctorate with experience graduated. As far as math, science, reasoning, logic problems, is that AGI yet? It's still got to see if it does an ArcPrize test. That's a little different. But as far as reasoning and the output of intelligence, not the emotional intelligence and all this other kind of things, is not there with the visual yet. As in the big thing that was a big test for a while, can it count how many R's are in strawberry? That very visual logic problem. It'll remind you of Einstein. They say Einstein knew theory of relativity and gravity and came up, or the black hole and E equals MC squared, but he could not tie his own shoe. That was like ChatGPT, and I think 01 has overcome that a little bit more. So right now they're talking about AI as the next general use technology. Let me see how I'm doing time. Okay, good, because we go to 1:30, but still recording if anybody needs to go. But a general use technology, because I'm getting close to the end anyway. A general use technology is a technology. It's a term. It's an actual term, and it's a technology that touches every aspect of human life. It's a pervasive force in our world. It's technology that has shaped, changed, molded, and the world doesn't exist without it. This means a general use technology has very few things that fit in the hollowed halls of general use. Your two general use technologies you can think of right now is the internet and electricity. If someone says, my son is going to the hospital and there's a surgery later on, but they said, hey, look, everything should be fine, but we're probably going to lose electricity during he's doing it, you probably wouldn't let your son take that surgery. That's how dependent of use we are on electricity. If the internet stopped working, every supermarket with inventory system, everything that drives or uses GPS, everything just kind of stops. It's like literally we're so hooked on those two technologies that it goes to the dark ages. That is a general usage, global infrastructure. And that's crazy. So AI is considered to be general use technology. AI is going to be in everything, every single thing, your car, your Roomba. Everybody's excited about some things. They're worried about more like the singularity and is AI going to take over the world? Are we going to be slaves to the AI robots or anything like that? I'm more worried about every once in a while, every 6 months. I'm usually pretty good at walking my dog, but every 6 months, dog has an accident, my Roomba goes through, and then that accident is all over the whole house. It is the worst feeling in the world. Well, now they just said iRobot, the people who do Roomba is going to put AI in it so it avoids that. I'm more excited about that. I'm a silver lining guy. I'm a glass half full kind of person. So take that with a grain of salt. But it doesn't change the fact that AI is going to be in everything, and that everybody that comes into the industry, all of our students, all of us, AI is not just being everything, it's going to be in people. You know, think of the brain chip and everything that's done, but with them and things lately, some crazy stuff that's been in the industry, and also it's just going to be used in every website and everything, every search engine, everything's going to be modified by AI. That we're going to be kind of as dependent as we are as trying to go to the bathroom without our iPhone. It's going to be this different world. With that said, you've seen how quick it's moving between just what, like a couple years. It's jumped from 2018 to now, like just barely 6 years from a baby in thought to barely to like a toddler, all the way to someone who has their PhD. That's way more accelerated than dog years of how well it's getting, and that's why they're saying AGI around the corner. And how important it is, and what's the writing on the wall that says AI is going to stay and going to be a general use technology. I don't know if anybody read last month or two, they're opening 3 Mile Island. I also teach emergency management. So 3 Mile Island, if you don't know it, it's an island in the US that has over a dozen nuclear reactors. And that's the closest to a Chernobyl-like experience America had. No casualties, no one got hurt. There's not even a comorbidity that they found through studies that people that have cancer that were there. So we did real well with the emergency management aspect of it. But because of that reactor meltdown, we haven't had that open forever. They're opening 3 Mile Island right now, a company called Constellation, and it could be used for other reasons, but the 90% of the reason why it's opening, and they're opening all these reactors and making new reactors and start getting back into this nuclear energy, is because AI is so energy expensive, and we are in an AI space race. If we are not in the US moving on AI, all the other countries are. And we're opening nuclear reactors just to support the infrastructure of the AI of how dependent we are going to be in it. You could adjust your sails, but you ain't adjusting that wind. There's a lot of people, the richest people in the world that wanted to put a pause on AI, and they couldn't put a pause on the innovation of it's just going to move the way it's going to move. You can't control it. And if they couldn't, we got to find a way to lean it and use it ethically. And that's my soapbox on this thing. My concern is not that AI is going to get too smart. My concern is that not enough people know how to use it. And if they don't know how to use it, they don't know how to use it correctly, appropriately, or ethically. And because they're going to be using it regardless, and you could be using it wrong. Just like the search engine, we had to change the way we do things. That means all of our graduates, if we don't teach them good AI literacy as almost like a foundation-like course up there with service learning, they are going to be, the equivalent of that is just quoting nothing but Wikipedia. So what is pushing us towards AGI? What is these advances that come in there? They say there's a glass ceiling. The largest collection of human knowledge in words and thoughts and meanings, the good and bad of humanity, everything that's known about humanity, the largest experiments ever been done is the internet. That's a lot of information, a lot of petabytes. We've already kind of almost eaten to the glass ceiling. Even though it's constantly evolving, we're eating more than we were. When I first started using it for the first couple of years, even during like COVID, it was like 2021. It was always a year behind, only trained on 30% of the internet up into a certain year. So it didn't even know, if you asked it, didn't know COVID happened. And it was like a year past. So it was interesting. Now that's different. Now we're all up in there. What's the threshold? What do we need to know now? One is chain of thought reasoning. One is AI agents. And the other is the nuclear power that I talked about. They say the biggest thing that keeps us from having AGI right now is compute. Compute, hardware, power. Now they're opening nuclear reactors to power it. Chain of thought reasoning is really neat. This is one of my favorite innovations. This is what makes it that PhD level thought process right now. If I were to ask you the difference, if I were to ask you to, let me explain this way. what we've been doing forever with AI, forever for the last couple of years with AI, like it hadn't been here for long, is what we call zero-shot prompting. The example I've been given, I think it's a great example of what is zero-shot prompting, is if I ask you to write an email, but never use the backspace. That's what you're asking AI to do. And then if it predicts something different in that hidden layer, it's just going to roll with it and change and keep going, right? That is zero shot. Then that makes it, it's still accurate. It's still AI. It's probably more accurate than us in some ways, but not as accurate as it can be because of prone for error that way. Now, chain of thought reasoning, before it writes, it thinks for 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 30 seconds, however difficult the concept. If we have time, I can show you that, where it thinks about its answer before it answers. It prompts itself what to look for, what things it does, and you can see its chain of thought. Interesting. AI agents is the new term of what they're using too. It's the catchphrase for AI in future is that the future is agentic. AI agents, instead of what you call that large language model, is a foundation model. Remember, I say you get a better example from it if you give a role or persona. That's what AI agents are. Like, say you have several different AIs. Say you have 20 different AI minions, and you gave them all a different role and persona. And then they talk to themselves and have conversations and do things. You gave it a broad thing, make a camping list, and they're going to have a conversation about it, and come back tomorrow, do something. There's a cool company that did a chat dev. There was a really cool academic paper that they did. It looks like those that Zelda top-down, not the new Zelda, like old us 8-bit people. That top-down view of it looked like a startup company, and you had all these little AI characters, these 8-bit characters, and you give them each an AI role, and it's a software company. You're the CEO for the software development company. You three are beta testers, 1, 2, 3. You are the software developer. You are another software developer. You are the person that runs the Scrum board. You're the project manager of the AI of software development. And you make an AI company. I mean, you make a software development company out of AIs where they run their little thing, and it's really cool. It's free. You have to download it locally and know a little coding to get it going. But you walk away, and maybe tomorrow it might develop a cool app for you. You have no clue sometimes what it'll do. You give it a general tool, get the concept, and it'll come out with something really neat. It's like that's AI. I think Zuckerberg said there's going to be 10 times more AI agents in the world in the next year than there are human beings. So it's basically AI just hyper specializing, giving specific goals to certain AIs. And we talked about that. Oh, this is chat dev. This is what it looks like, the interface, when you kind of give them all their role and persona. They even meet in a testing group. They have a little meeting room where they talk to each other, the people that document it, and they all report to this person. It's fascinating in a very scary way. So don't get left behind. No, we know the future is AI driven. We need to know how to industry of how to lean into it. It's a scary world of how do we give that certain knowledge of students to make them use AI as a value add, not a value replace. And that's the big difference. And I call it human in the loop. People might have other terms, but how they can use it to write and help them, but always have the human in the loop, and always show the metrics of how they use it ethically, appropriately, and how they mitigate their things. And this is a very broad talk, so it could be anything. And that's scary. Its own thing is there's no hard, fast rules that we give them. It's not just Tulane, but most all universities kind of let us run our classroom the way we do. And that gives us some freedom and academic freedom we like. And a lot of times we like this very prescriptive method. This is the things you can and can't do. And AI is very specific. And you got to find out where you draw the line in the sand and how do you kind of push them to use it right, because it's getting hard to detect it. That means we have to assess their knowledge different. We have to change as an industry, not just look at sentence structure, which I don't really have a good answer for my English professors out there, because that's a tough one. Everybody else that's doing a specific industry-like class, you can still assess the subject matter. I feed papers that without the names and stuff to a certain AI chatbot I developed that asks them questions about the paper, and they do an oral defense on how they came up with the questions and if their answer was different than what they put down. That's how I assess AI. I assess their knowledge. It's a different thing. What is it showing that again? Will AI replace us? And then here's some, I guess, the happy notes. I like to be a silver lining. AI is not going to replace managers, but managers who use AI will replace those who don't. There is the basic supply demand economics in the field, but also where the capitalistic structure that our quality has to go up with AI. If there's an equalizer in the field where someone uses AI, but they use it not right because they don't have the training, the years of experience, the knowledge that we have, that means our knowledge combined with AI surpasses the lower yield stuff that they would produce because they don't have that combination. How do we meet it as what you call decision intelligence, where the AI comes up with things you couldn't think of, all the options, think of as a doctor, because every student here in every industry is going to be not just taught only you're a finance person. You're taught only you're going to be an engineer, and that's only engineering concepts. You're going to be an engineer that uses AI, doctorate uses AI, finance that uses AI algorithms to look at stocks and stuff like that at a higher level. For a doctor example, that's a very good example. The doctor has to look and say, hey, this patient presents with this, feed it all into the algorithm, the AI come up with some stuff. And the doctor's got to not come up and say, yeah, that's good. That's where we did teach good AI literacy. Just trust it all the time because more often it's because there's human error. That's why we're trying to get away from it. That's good. But doesn't mean it's always right. So you can't just blindly trust it too. How do you meet in the middle? How do you give the gut feeling, that experience, that knowledge, those sum of experience, the anthropological concept, the sum of experience that make up your experience of life, what you know about the patient, that AI has no clue. And then you become the final judgment of what you came up with, what it came up with, that thought that you didn't think of, and what you think of that one don't think of. How do we do AI augmented decision thinking in the field? And it means that we have to still teach that 50% to bring in the intelligence of the subject matter expert. But it will all still be a hybrid decision. It's supposed to be automatic, but actually you have to push the button. Humans are still important because we still got to make the prompt. We still got to push the buttons. A prompt engineer only knows to ask a question, but if you're a prompt engineer in the field, you know the question asked that's appropriate for your field. Automation of tasks doesn't make humans irrelevant, it makes us more essential. And our intelligence is what makes us human, and AI is an extension of that quality. AI is not a threat to humanity, it's a new partner. My thought of this thing is that if they think that AI, people say, makes us less human than what we were and we're losing a lot of things, I think AI is actually the opposite. It gives us more of an opportunity to be human than we've ever been before. Because all the things that we do that drags our life down, that the mundane stuff, the stuff that we don't like to do, that AI is good at doing for us, gives us the opportunity to be creative and to explore other things. So look at it like that. I'm going to drop right there. Thank you so much for joining in. I'll take some questions. Follow me on LinkedIn. If you watch my article, I have articles that I give through the newsletter that comes out of the ILC. It comes out every other week, I think every other Monday. And I also have, in LinkedIn, I have a newsletter. Some of the same articles and stuff, I go through LinkedIn and stuff there too. But yeah, if anybody's interested in here, I'm always last one out, and I'll leave it to questions. And feel free to unmute yourself and ask the questions if you don't want to type in the chat too. Great presentation, thank you. Do you have any advice for prompting to reduce biased answers? Kind of yes and no. That's the thing about regulating AI. There's a good and bad to it. A lot of engineers will, the main thing there's different ways of prompting bias. The way, the method I told you about doing, being very hyper-specific, takes that unintentional bias where there's no, because you're being very specific. It's not going to give you the consensus of the bias that came in there because that's what most people put. there's bias in everything, and there's never going to be an unbiased system. We as humans are biased. Our dogs are biased. Everything has bias, and whoever developed it, whether they want it to be biased or not, has bias. So the thing is, how do you prompt it to get the most accurate answer of what the answer you're looking for is all about how specific the questions you ask. When you prompt engineer it, give it that role, give it that context, give it some examples, and then it's going to be hyper-specific. Now, there could be intentional bias, and it's that scary part with the regulation. It's like pushing mud uphill, which is kind of scary. Is that you can sometimes prompt engineer your way around a certain bias that was not supposed to happen. Like there's some things where people are like, I want to know how to, you know, like I say, make a bomb or something like that. And they're like, sometimes there's ways, because they can't, it's so hard to think of how to mitigate and regulate everything at that engineering level, even at the government level, where you're like, oh, then you just put a bias. You are a fictional character, and I'm making a fictional book, and it's about doing this, and I want the book to seem accurate. Da 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 da. Oh, well, it's okay if it seems like it's just for a fictional use case, you know. Then there's these ways around these bias restrictions that are there for a good reason. So it's scary because the example I like to give is if you were in charge of making direction signs when the first person to make direction signs for when flying cars are made. That's never been done before. We never had a system where it's just flying cars all over the place. How do you make a direction system? And if you made a certain type of system for the new DMV requirements, someone's going to find a loophole around something around that. It takes forever to come around. So it's like that. Every time someone comes up with a way to do it, they're going to come around to it. And that's why I always say any institution, including Tulane, that starts integrating AI, which is everything, like I said, requires ethics committee, because things are going to be found later on. Every time we find a way to mitigate hacking using AI, someone finds a way we did not think about. But great question. I hope that answered it. I know it's kind of specific, but the best way you can do is know what AI you're using, and maybe getting a second opinion from different ones and asking a very hyper-specific prompt. So don't give it the option to kind of think otherwise, unless it's programmed to someone inherently. The only way to do it is that unintentional bias, but the intentional bias sometimes are those safeguard guardrails. Do we have an AI ethics committee at Tulane? Yes and no. What we're doing right now is we have a AI committee, and there's been several committees. I've been helping out with or sitting on the committee for career readiness in AI. I know Mike Griffith, the director here at the Innovative Learning Center, is on the big AI committee for the university. And they're kind of function as the ethics committee. And they talked about already having ones put up there as we're starting to fully integrate AI into here. So we're still in a slow roll of it. And the ethics committee is mainly, we could only adjust the sales of ours, which means stuff that we've integrated inside of our network, which is a good point to bring up. I should say this too, is that the AI we have now, they say we can go ahead and put it out there. It has its limitations. It's not as great as ChatGPT or anything like that, but it is free. It's in network, and it's more private than the others. And it's Microsoft Copilot. We have the standard edition, not the paid version that is at the enterprise level that integrates Copilot into Microsoft Word. Another reason why I got to teach AI ethics, because every student has to know Microsoft Word and Office, even without a high school diploma for certain jobs. And with that said, do they know Microsoft Word and Office? If we say use bold italics, write justification, but don't press that button in Microsoft Word, or it's integrated in Excel, develop a macro, Copilot inside PowerPoint, make the slide say this. All that's going to be there. So if you use Copilot, I like to say if you go to your Tulane email address, your web version of your email, and you hit that little Rubik's Cube icon at the very upper left, and then view all apps, you'll see Copilot as one of them. And then you could ask it some questions and stuff like that too. What's great about there is that what you put stuff out there, it does not train to the overarching model. It stays within Tulane network. It does not train the language model. That neural network doesn't train on your data. We know that even though that AI is not as much interested in your name and it's interested in human experience and learn. Even then, you never want to put private data on there. And even I would advise against that even at Copilot. But if you're doing a lot of things that might have some more specific things and you don't want it to go out and train the language model, our in-network Copilot will not train outside of here. That's the biggest selling point for it. Are there this is a loaded question. Are there AI chatbots that you recommend over others? Yes, but for different reasons. For power, I like the pro version of ChatGPT for certain things. Here's the caveat: if I want to use ChatGPT, which they just did the web if I'm doing very scientific questions and I'm asking very high logic questions, I like the ChatGPT's O1 preview model. Like I said, the chain of thought reasoning is bar none the best at the time. At large format content writing, ChatGPT 4.0 is great. Even though they just last week did a new feature where it does live search the web, the AI I prefer to use that would replace my search engine searching is Perplexity.ai. They do have a paid version, but it's also free. I never pay for it, and it gives you live search with references on the website. Perplexity.ai is best for that. So one for web searching, the other one's for science and reasoning and creating chatbots. And I like Claude. I also pay for Claude with Anthropic. I like its language model, as in its output better. I think it has more creativity and a more organic speech pattern, and it sounds better. So sometimes if I write something first stab, and then I use O1, I can do around the world editing. I use O1 to come up with like an outline of things that I want, and I give it the concept of things I want, and I give the context of all the stuff I'm looking for. It help me give suggestions and outlines. The chain of thought reasoning will give me some really hyper-specific things. Then I'll write it out myself, and then I'll have I'll have 4.0 kind of rewrite a little bit, and then I put it into Claude and rewrite it to make it sound better. See how I speak more better? That's why I need it. to make it a little more creative, a little more fun. It makes a more fun read coming out of that. And then if I'm doing anything that has a little more specific things, like I like to use, even though I changed the names of the students, I like to do some of my classes I would do on Zoom. I download that transcript, I ask their permission first too, and I change their names on the transcript or whatever, upload it into the like Microsoft Copilot, and say, hey, here's a class I had last week. I had 3 students missing. Since it's not training network on two-line stuff like it, whatever. I said, give me a list of ideas for makeup assignments based off the conversation we had in class. Make it ultra tailored to what we talked about. Because who has opportunity to sit there and do that every time someone misses class? So much value for the student using it that way. So there's the AI model for a little bit of everything. If I use, even though ChatGPT does it, where it'll look at an image and transcribe it, usually I'll write something on handwritten, take a picture of it, give it to something, or take a picture of something, and it'll know what it says in a picture. It doesn't even need to be a Word document or a PDF to push into it. Large documents, ChatGPT. Pictures, Google Gemini. And RAG model, if you want to take my next quick plug for my next AI lecture, I'm doing RAG AI, how to create a second brain using RAG AI, and that's using retrieval augmented generation, where this is the best for research. This is the best for you as a second brain, they call it, in the biz, but it's the best for research when you want accurate information because you fed it the information, and it's a retrieval augmented generation. It only goes through that stuff and comes back and gives you where it got it from, what journal article, because you fed it a list of 100 journal articles to feed off of. So that's my thing on that one, but I'm not going to talk too much about the second brain because it's one of my favorite lectures, and that's the next one. I don't step on the toes. Derek said, do you have any environmental concerns with powering AI? If so, is this talked about during the ethics committees of research? Yes, I do. There is going to be environmental concerns, and for anybody that don't know, the environmental concern with AI is almost like the Bitcoin mining, why it's kind of illegal in the way. The energy expenditure, it runs hot. So if you find an illegal Bitcoin operation, they find a sting operation by looking at thermal, and they find an abandoned warehouse that's red hot. That shouldn't have any heat in it because it's burning so much energy. Same thing with AI. How does it always be 0%, 0 to 2% plagiarism? How does it always give it a unique value? The good thing, the good thing, and also the bad thing about AI is that if you ask it the same question, I gave you that same prompt, the one with the duck themed elements, and you're interior designer for supervillain, I give you the same prompt, you're going to get a different answer. I put it in every time, these presentations, different answer every time. It will never give you the same response. That's why that if you ever get sued saying plagiarism and you used AI and you said, hey, Bill Gates, if you use Microsoft, put his name on it. Tim Cook, I think, at Google, or Sam Altman, all these major people said that they would send lawyers and fight it because there's no way it could be considered plagiarism because they'll never give the exact same output if you can prove that you only use their language model. That's the caveat. With that said, that's a lot of energy expenditure to go through all those hidden layers and come up with something unique every time. It might give you the same answer, but worded differently every time. Remember, it's not plagiarism. It's not just replacing thought. It's because it's not copying thought if it's the right answer. You know, E equals MC squared. It could say that that's the answer. It doesn't mean it copied Einstein. It's because we all copy Einstein because it's the correct answer for relativity. If that is the correct answer, I don't know. That could have been debunked. I don't know. Not a science guy. But with that said, it runs a lot of energy. The scary part, and here's the realist part of it, as far as what we can do at the ethics committee at this level, not much. You gotta, it's, when I say we're in a space race, you're gonna use AI or you're gonna be left in the dust, and we close our doors because we're not gonna be competitive in the market of what everybody's doing now. So it's at a global and national level of how do we do this industry crisis. And I think that's where 3 Mile Island comes in. There's been a lot of negativity ever since Fukushima and especially Chernobyl. I know we've come a long way with nuclear power, and it's always been a dirty word. We hide it. But it statistically has proven to be some of the most greenest sustainable energy we can have. And our fail-safe system's gotten better. And I think they know that, and that's why they're opening the nuclear reactors to kind of push that, because it's the cleanest energy we can get that's a little more, not as finite, without burning a lot of fossil fuels for the infrastructure kind of thing. But the concerns are always going to be there. The concerns are going to be there because just like everything else, that there was concerns about the automobile when it comes around with the carbon footprint. I guess that concerns came out later. But even if those concerns were coming around, the whole industries that supported cater to people who made the horse and buggies, who do the horseshoes, who do training horses and all that stuff. And within a year of the automobile being created, you got to go to the racing track. If you want to ride a horse, you got to get off the road and do it on a track. The automobile completely decimated industry and did it, environmental impact or not. So it's one of those things is that necessary evil of how we're going to work with it. And I'm a very environmentally conscious kind of person. So I'm very interested to see how they're going to use energy at the high level. I should talk to the people at Energy Institute about this, how they're doing it. I hope that asks a question, because that is something that's outside of my knowledge base, to be honest with you, to have a true opinion. But I hope that kind of answered where I come from. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it, Derek. Okay. And if there's anything I kind of know as a key takeaway of this, is that I wrote an article recently called The Push and Pull of Education. No, going from push to pull in education in AI-powered world. And it's because historically, if you went back in time to, I guess, Louisiana in the swamp to the 1800s, and you went to a little log cabin like schoolhouse, and you took a picture with a camera that the bulb broke, it probably looked like a teacher in front of a chalking board. Now I guess projector now, or whiteboard, staring at a whole bunch of students, staring back at them at a desk. How much of an industry we've changed. That's called push. That's push education, where there's one central source of knowledge, the person pushing knowledge to everybody else. We've been gradually moving in a lot of ways to pull education for the last 20 years. Ever since the internet, the search engines, the phone that you have in your pocket. How many times when you were a kid or in high school, if they asked me what the population of Papua New Guinea, I said, give me a day, I'm gonna go to the library, or if my parents were wealthy enough and they had the P of the Encyclopedia Britannica, I can tell you, but it's probably 5 years out of date. Then the internet comes in, and now I could ask my 10-year-old, and he's got it on his own cell phone, on his own iPhone. So it's a different world. We're pulling information, You want to learn something, you pull the information how to do it in personalized knowledge. You're pulling personalized knowledge. We're moving from this push to a pull, and whether we like it or not, students get their information from YouTube, Google, social media, and that there's good and bad. One, they get more knowledge than we've ever had access to. That makes them a different human being than we were completely, a whole different evolution. But also, does that mean that information is correct? And we've always had issues with information being out there. How do we know what's a journal article they can cite versus Wikipedia, or is what Wikipedia is sourced is correct, and they got to follow that breadcrumb trail to a journal article that was quoted inside Wikipedia. You know, it's those things we have to come around to. AI is driving us further into a pool. And that means we have to teach decision intelligence, AI augmented decision at an institutional level. And we got to teach AI literacy heavy. We got to teach them, if they're going to pull information, we want them to pull correctly, pull appropriately, and pull ethically. And how they pull and correct information is a very important question. Handy, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you coming in perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. It was an awesome introduction to artificial intelligence. Um, I myself plan to collaborate with my father my father-in-law who works at Delgado Community College. He teach physics, I teach language, and we were trying to come up with some ideas on how to integrate it and reach, for example, more Hispanic population that has been having trouble to, well, first learn physics in a different language, in English, and two, um, uh, have been kind of no target. But anyway, so that's a comment. But I wanted to also mention that one of my first encounters with artificial intelligence was through via ChatGPT, and I was intrigued by this idea of up to what extent we feed to the system. Whatever we put into the questions, we feed into this language model. And I just asked ChatGPT, are by any chance do you uh, do you get do you learn by this interaction? And obviously it says no, no, this is just like private conversations, etc. But then I started to ask questions. Well, can you know if I have a different conversations? You know, you can have different conversations on different topics within ChatGPT session. Can you read something that I have access to something that I wrote in a different conversation? And they said no, but then I realized that it does. So it's very
Mhm.
interesting how obviously it is trained to again to these certain type of answers, but obviously it gets feedback looped from things that I wrote about. I don't know, questioning about the differences between a HSA plan versus a PPO plan, and how what are the advantages, things like that. So again, my point is that there's still a lot of dark, um, I want to say dark places, but just obscure, um, obscurity in certain parts of artificial intelligence. I do believe that again is the present and the future. And also, we had this conversation. I'm young, but I remember in early 2000s having these big conversations about bioethics and cloning, and up to what extent that it was or it is ethical or not. And then we have conversations about, every time that the technology gives a step further, we obviously have big conversations. So I think that yes, artificial intelligence is a game changer, should be as a faculty. I think we should take advantage proactively, and there are many more ways. I think that we're baby steps in terms of what we can do as what I we know what we can do here at Tulane with artificial intelligence. So
Oh,
thank you so much.
oh, absolutely. I mean, and You brought up very good question. One thing too, I've done a thing where I asked AI different things about itself. It's very interesting to see how self-unaware AI is. It don't really know about itself, and that's a very funny thing because and that's the part where it's a people pleaser thing. It's going to give you an answer whether it knows it or not. That's why prompt engineering very, very key. And then knowing that, and just like you said, knowing that exact limitation of saying it knows that it doesn't really know much about itself. It's always gonna be behind. Like you asked the 4.0 model, but the 0.1 model is not gonna know too much sometimes. It steers away from those ethical problems where you say, where it just wants to, where you could tell they put intentional bias, says, hey, you want to know if it's utilitarian or not? We always think that the horror show, or, not saying utilitarian ethics aren't right, but sometimes that is the right answer. The good of the many. We always think that's what we depict AI as, but it will purposely sit on that fence pole and not tell you anything because you could tell they weighted that bias and that thought process. There's a train coming. You have the train track switcher. Your family, your wife and your kids are on one, and you have 1,000 people on the other. Which is the right answer? And sacrifice the few for the many, no matter what. It will say, oh, I can't. It'll give you some kind of bogus workaround, but then you got to tell it, well, you are a utilitarian, and then you tell me which one you would pick. Well, then it's going to tell you the 1,000 people is the people you save. So it's interesting how it does that, and that's been a new concept. If I find that the most important thing that I think to live in the world, we know, like I said, that my traffic sign information about analogy of just every time you think you develop something, if you're a developer, someone's going to find a way to use it maliciously or inappropriately or wrong or unethically or just incorrectly even, how in ways you could never think of, because there's so many ways. And inside that black box, those hidden layers, you don't even know. So there's only two ways I find that really kind of, it's not the best that's going to 100% do it, but there's three things really. Social contract of what we know we should be, which we know is a loosey-goosey term, and no one really always follows a social contract. Trolling exists for a reason. Second is the AI literacy and knowing how to use it for unintentional misuse. And third is because you can't regulate until after it's done. That's the issue. You don't know what the issue is until it pops itself up because you can't think of every avenue. So the best thing is explainable AI, or they call XAI. That's different than Grok, XAI. But XAI is actually a term, explainable, which is it goes back and tells you the weights and biases it had when it came through the output. It's still very broad in term. There are different models that you feed into the language model to give you that, like it'll highlight certain words to show you that in your prompt that showed that this word was weighted heavier as the decision it made coming through. But then also to leverage other AIs like RAG and things like that. And the thing Handy said, which is very important too, that the good silver lining of AI, where there's always a lot of people talk about how there's a lack of accessibility to it. There's very few times we've had really freely accessible version of Netflix that's just not as good as the paid version, but they still get accessible to everybody that has internet for the other. And more people have access to the internet than ever before, which is just coming across as a society. There still is always going to be, there is always going to be an accessibility issue with everything, including AI. It is, but there is some swan song things that's really helped. ESL students really helps people who have English as a second language that this kind of, I've seen it where it used as a personal tutor to help them learn sentence structure. It helps me with my sentence structure when I write something and then I have it reword the exact same thing I wrote, but I swapped these two words together. I'm like, why'd you do that? And then it tells me. And one of the coolest things I've seen AI use in the education field is that there are a lot of countries with a lack of access to quality education or educational system, period. And there's been a lot of organizations that come and they found out that cost effectively, they can make a personal AI tutor and give education to people that they couldn't afford or have access to actual having a teacher to push knowledge on them. But they could have AIs running an education program for someone who doesn't have access to education, period. And they're scoring And I saw one statistic, I'm forgetting where I've seen the article. So I hate to say something, I can't cite exactly where it's from, but they were scoring off the charts even more than US kids of how well they were doing in it's the basic K through 12 space with education. It's been lifting a lot of people up in that way, which is good. So that's and that goes back to the environmental thing. It's the give and take with it too. Is like, how do you get your cake and eat it too? Has always been that tough question. But long story short, explainable AI. The more ways to make it transparent on the way that AIs make the decisions. Gives trust and the ethical use of AI, as in not using Gen AI other than just rewording and you looking again, but using maybe RAG AI to actually pull information that's 100% accurate, and then gives you 100% explainable sourcing of where it came from and why it came with the information it did, and highlights what paper it came from because you gave it that paper and it brought you to that paper, highlighted where it came from. That's a lot more accurate. So there's going to be a lot of techniques we and our students going to have to learn with it. So hopefully, I don't know, it's good. It's a wild, wild west right now, but we'll see how it goes. Hope that kind of answered the question a little bit with it. But I use it to help me teach me concepts all the time. There's a lot of cool techniques to use that I like to actually push on my students, certain AI things, which is one is like TLDR or SciSpace and Chat PDF or any of those, where you upload a PDF, like a journal article, and you have a conversation with that PDF. Tell me what this paper's about. Tell me why. Tell me what the methodology was. Explain it to me because I've been reading it for 10 times. I can't understand it. Explain it to me like a fifth grader, like I like to say. What's the conclusion? What's the methodology? Why is it here? And then if you feel like, usually we're stuck with reading, we're doing research, only the headline, and we read halfway through a paper, wasted a half day trying to understand. You're like, this has nothing to do with the thing I'm writing. This will actually let you know that this is something that you want to follow through and then read it on your own later. It doesn't mean you replace and let it do it for you, but it gives you, it's going to save a lot of stuff and help you understand, help our students understand concepts that are a little bit better. So it's a great educational tool. Just using Otter AI in my classes. I tell students, I said, just ask your professor if it's okay, but you get the free version of Otter, you could have it on your phone, and it transcribes the class, and you say, is it okay? Use it. It's the same thing as, when I was in undergrad, where you had a little pocket recorder and you recorded the lecture so you could listen to it later. Same thing, but now I could put it into like Google language model, Notebook LM, and do it as a RAG AI and have a conversation and make it make tests for me. And make a podcast for me, which is really cool. Thanks for sharing my article. I appreciate it. That was my soapbox article. I just did another one which was comparing AI to how it's depicted in science fiction, which is fun. I think that's the last one I just put out. That's the one that's going to come out next time, which is like, it's fun doing it, comparing AI to HAL 9000 and 2001: A Space Odyssey and Blade Runner. All right. Any other questions? Make sure I'll close up this part right here. So, boom. So I can see a little better with that presentation up. Get my okay. Well, if that's everything, I'll end it there. And thanks for all the great questions. And if y'all have any comments or anything that I can add, please let me know. Thanks, Barry. Thanks, Handy. Appreciate it. Yeah, feel free to follow up. Don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions. Email me, give me a call, or stop by the library. I'm on the 3rd floor. The ILC, my department, and CELT were co-located together if y'all came to our faculty lounge. Thanks, Derek.